This is the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 22nd chapter. Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap him in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere, and teach the way of God in accordance with the truth, and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. Grace and peace be unto you from our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. One of the great joys of this year has, at this church has been the start of a young family group. And it's been exciting for me to see new friendships emerge, to see some of the parents having good discussions about what it means to be a spiritual leader for their children, and to see their kids starting to get to know each other and interact. And it's interesting for me to show up at that group where all of a sudden I am the old guy, where my kids are way older than all of their kids. But in July, they decided, let's have a picnic down at King Farm at the Matty Stepanek Park. So if you're new to the area, just go a mile south on 355 and you're almost there. But I don't hang around playgrounds very much anymore. So when I do go, I sort of experience it with a fresh and kind of a renewed perspective. So that day in July, what really grabbed my attention again was the swings. The swings. And we have a lot of really small kids, and I saw the same thing happen quite a few times. The child grabs a parent by the hand and they walk toward the swings, or they walk side by side. And if the kid was big enough, they would jump on the swing, and if the kid was too small, the parent would hoist them onto the swing. And each time the parent took the same position behind the child, behind the swing. And you would hear those magical words that a lot of us parents remember very, very well. "Push me, mommy," or "Push me, daddy." We've heard them before. And with that, the child, the parent, and any witnesses who were in the vicinity were invited to a tremendous experience of joy, excitement, and energy. We can picture that. Picture that for yourself right now. Picture the parent behind the child and that initial push on the back that starts all the forward momentum, that thrusts the swing into the air. Picture the other side. Picture the child's face. You know it has, the eyes get big as they get pushed. The wind blows their hair. They have a smile on their face. Sometimes you even get the little squeal of joy. But we know what happens. The kid heads upward till gravity takes over and they come back down. But lo and behold, who is there? His mom and dad are there. They haven't walked away, and they're there ready to push again and again and again. And a lot of times, what does the kid ask for? Say, "Take me higher, 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 higher." And the parent is there present to keep the momentum going, to help advance the swing, to help the kid go higher and higher, and in a sense, soar to higher heights. The parent's job is to stay near, to stay attentive, to keep pushing, to keep the momentum going, and certainly to cheer the child on. But in that whole process, you realize the parent is soaking in a tremendous amount of joy as well. Helping someone soar to new heights really is exciting, and it's fun to be a part of. And people of Good Shepherd, it is time for us to soar to new heights, and we need every single one of us. We can't be passive just watching. We all need to be involved. The ministry of the church, the mission of the church is very much like that child on the swing. It needs our involvement. The ministry of the church, the mission of the church grabs us, if you will, by hand and simply says to us, push me, give me momentum, help me to soar. The mission of the church is like that child who wants us to be near, wants us to cheer it on and offer encouragement. But the mission of the church wants us to help it to soar to new heights, and in the process wants to give us so much joy in return. The question for all of us to deal with, not only as we go toward the end of this year, but as we look to 2012, look beyond, is will we help the mission here at Good Shepherd soar to new heights? 2,000 years ago, St. Paul had a vision. We've sort of been talking about in Acts 16. We've been talking about the vision Paul had, where one night he's in the port of Troas and he gets this vision of a man pleading, man from Macedonia saying to Paul, come to Macedonia and help us. What I've been saying is that was an invitation to an open door. If Paul shared his Christian witness, if he showed up, there was the promise that it would make a huge difference. And Paul did. He got there. The Philippian community embraced him. It wasn't a huge bunch of people, but the people there were pretty passionate. And they were so thankful that Paul had pushed to include them. That group was certainly not, as Paul testifies, they were not the wealthiest bunch of people. They weren't the largest bunch of people. They weren't necessarily the elites of the world, but they were overflowing with joy. And what it says is they absolutely got behind the mission of God and they collectively pushed together. And one of the things that happened in their day was the poor in Jerusalem, the Christian brothers and sisters in Jerusalem, some of them were dealing with great affliction. They were suffering, didn't have much. And Paul organized a collection amongst the churches he had reached out to, saying, can you make an offering to reach out to our brothers and sisters in Jerusalem? And as Paul described, the people of Philippi were the most enthusiastic bunch of all. Their push to give was tremendous. In fact, it was so inspiring, it said they just absolutely begged and pleaded to be a part of it. Paul says, a wealth of generosity emerged from them. They gave according to their means and even beyond, literally begging to be a part of this experience of caring for the poor. But they believed so much in that mission that they just had to have a part. And what Paul said is their witness can inspire anyone and everyone, and that's what he did. Generosity, we know, is contagious. Our lives are changed by the generous people that we know, the people who give so much to us and on behalf of advancing the mission of God. Paul, in the lesson we read today, is speaking to the Corinthian community, a well-off community, a talented community, a community of leaders. He says, you excel in so many ways. You excel in speech, in eagerness, in knowledge. You're smart people. But what he challenged them to do, he challenged them to take the next step. He said, excel in generosity as well. Model the spirit of the Philippians, who were always looking outward. He said, do what they did. Get behind this mission and push and care for the poor of Jerusalem. He invited them and asked them to respond. And that really is our call here at Good Shepherd as we look ahead. I hear the words of Paul speaking to all of us, myself included. Excel in generosity and invite people to become a part of a community of faith that is always, always looking outward. We can give ministry a huge, ongoing, joyous push in this community. We don't just do it once and walk away. You realize it requires attention and continual involvement and continual giving. We need to be people continually engaged and behind making this church have momentum and advancing in this community. I'm serious when I say go ahead and read this. It's on the website. We have more copies in the lobby. This is what we plan to do in 2012. And one of the things we put on page 1 here was celebrating what's been accomplished here in the last year. It would be very easy for us to be satisfied in saying, yeah, this is exciting. We got things going. We have on there, we list that our worship is up 13%. So we'll probably have about 475 per week this year. In the last 12 months, we've received 168 new members, which is quite a few. We have Our youth programs are starting to grow. We see so many more people, so many more adults in adult education trying to grow their faith. A lot of new fellowship groups are emerging. And even our giving, or we've sort of raised our level of giving somewhat, which is exciting. But still, we need to do better to fully fund the ministry here, but also just to keep reaching out. In a community of 1 million people, we always need to be finding ways to activate and get people involved. The question for me isn't, will you be involved? The question for me really is, how will you get involved to help us push the ministry forward? How will you help us soar to new heights in the coming year? How will you help us spread the joy and in the process receive so much joy in return? Perhaps what that means is you'll get involved in something new. Perhaps it means you'll come to worship a little bit more often next year. Perhaps you'll get involved in a social outreach activity on an ongoing basis. Perhaps you'll become a friendly caller, or perhaps you'll step up and say, this is something that's not present at the church now, but I can make happen. But lastly, I think one of the key things we really want to lift up is that we want to fully fund this ministry. Okay, we don't want to fall short. If we fully fund this ministry, the sky really is the limit. $1.35 million is what it is going to cost to really produce probably one of the most dynamic ministries you and I have ever been a part of. That is saying we want to increase benevolence 10% next year. And this is a day and age where a lot of churches are completely cutting back. We think it's very, very important for us and for the wider community to know that we are not fearful. We are going to be courageous in what we do. 2 weeks from today, we ask you to make a commitment to return a pledge. And what that is for me, that's your way of showing that you are right behind, ready to push, ready to help this church soar to new heights. Where I'm at, you need to know I'm behind this completely myself. But this Penny's going to show you one slide. In my research, figuring out where I fall on the world scale of wealth, poorest is on the left, richest is on the right. I don't own a Starbucks on the side, although some of you know that would be kind of fun. I didn't own a business before I went to seminary. I don't have a massive stockpile of stocks and all that. Simply on what I make as a pastor, what my wife makes in a part-time job. That's where we fall. 99.4% of world wealth. Only 0.6% of the world is richer than we are. And what that says to me is it gives me opportunities that so many people don't have. It gives me an opportunity to do great things by being generous. And for me, this is the community of people that I think is changing the world the best in my mind of the people I know. So you're going to see me give 10, 11. I hope by the time I retire, that's where I'm at now, but I would love to be at 20, 25, 30 before I retire. But I invite you to sort of pay attention to where you fall on the scale and think about what you can do with the tools that God has given you, time, talent, and of course, financial resources. We can indeed fully fund this ministry and go way beyond that and really be a powerful force in this community, all in the name of